When I look back now, it's hard for me to believe how something so ordinary, so seemingly harmless, could spiral into one of the most complicated, heartbreaking, and unforgettable chapters of my life. My name is Rachel Thompson. I was 32 years old at the time, married to David, the man I thought would be my forever. We had been married for 8 years, and though our marriage wasn't perfect, I believed it was strong enough to weather any storm. But life has a way of testing you in ways you least expect, and my test came disguised as a simple favor. David and I lived in a quiet suburb in North Carolina. He worked long hours as a financial consultant, while I ran a small bakery out of our home. We didn't have children yet, though we'd been trying for a couple of years. That subject sometimes weighed on us, especially on me, but we loved each other, or at least I thought we did, and I believed time would work things out. David's closest friend was Michael, a guy he had known since college. Michael was charming, funny, and the kind of person who always knew how to lighten a room. He was divorced, living only a few blocks away, and he often dropped by our house for dinners or football games. I never thought much about it. To me, Michael was just David's friend, someone who had become part of our extended family circle. One rainy Thursday afternoon, the story began. David was away on a business trip in Chicago, and I was at home cleaning up after baking orders. My phone buzzed, and it was Michael. He sounded frantic. His car had broken down a few miles from my house, and with the storm rolling in, he asked if I could give him a quick ride to pick up his son from soccer practice. Normally, I might have hesitated. I wasn't used to running errands for him, but it was pouring outside, and he genuinely sounded desperate. A simple favor, I told myself. Just a neighborly act of kindness for my husband's best friend. I grabbed my keys, slipped on a raincoat, and drove to where he was stranded. When I pulled up, Michael was standing by his car, drenched from head to toe, looking more defeated than I had ever seen him. His shirt clung to his body, and his usually playful smile was replaced with exhaustion. "Rachel, you're a lifesaver," he said, sliding into the passenger seat. "I owe you big time." We laughed about his bad luck with cars and talked casually during the drive. After dropping off his son, Michael insisted on buying me coffee as thanks. It seemed innocent enough, so I agreed. We sat in a cozy cafe while the rain hammered against the windows, and what was supposed to be a quick cup stretched into a 2-hour conversation. We talked about life, about loneliness, about how hard it was for him to adjust after his divorce. And for the first time in a while, I felt someone was listening to me too. He asked about my bakery, about my dreams, about whether David and I were happy. His questions were genuine, and I realized how rare it had become for me to have such a deep conversation with anyone, even my husband. When I finally got home, I brushed it off as just helping a friend. But I couldn't shake the memory of how intently Michael had looked into my eyes, how I felt a spark of attention that had been missing for so long. The following days, Michael began texting me little notes of gratitude. At first, it was simple. "Thanks again, Rachel. You're amazing." Then it became more personal. "Talking to you the other day reminded me what real connection feels like." I told myself it was harmless, but deep down, I knew a line was being approached. Weeks turned into months, and the favor that had seemed so small became a turning point. Whenever David was busy or traveling, Michael would check in. Sometimes he'd stop by my bakery to buy muffins he didn't really need. Sometimes he'd help me carry flour bags or fix something around the house while David was away. Each encounter blurred the boundaries a little more. One evening, David called to tell me he'd be staying late at work. I had just closed the bakery when Michael dropped by with a bottle of wine. He said he didn't want me eating alone. I should have said no, but loneliness and curiosity won out. We sat in my kitchen, drinking, laughing, sharing stories. The atmosphere grew heavier, and when he placed his hand over mine, the room fell silent. "Rachel," he whispered, "I know this isn't right, but I can't help how I feel." My heart pounded in my chest. I pulled my hand away, but not before I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. I told him it was wrong, that we couldn't betray David, but deep inside, I couldn't deny the part of me that longed for the attention. That night, nothing physical happened, but something inside me shifted. A door had opened, and no matter how hard I tried to close it, the temptation lingered. Over the next weeks, I wrestled with guilt. I loved David, but his constant absence, his preoccupation with work, made me feel invisible. With Michael, I felt seen. One night, when David was out of town again, I made the mistake of inviting Michael over to fix a leaky faucet. That was the night the simple favor turned into something I could never take back. I won't go into the explicit details, but what happened was more than a mistake, it was a choice, a betrayal. The guilt that followed was unbearable. Every time I looked at David, I felt sick. Every time Michael texted me, I was torn between longing and shame. Eventually, the truth came out. David found a string of messages on my phone one morning, and the look on his face when he read them was something I will never forget. Anger, hurt, disbelief, it all flashed across his eyes. "Rachel," he said, his voice trembling, "how could you? With him?" The aftermath was brutal. Michael vanished from our lives overnight, too cowardly to face David. My marriage hung by a thread. We went through months of counseling, of sleepless nights, of fights that left me in tears. I confessed everything, every detail, because I didn't want lies to build more walls between us. David and I are still together today, but nothing is the same. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. He says he forgives me, but I see the doubt in his eyes. And me. I live with the weight of knowing that one simple favor, one moment of weakness, nearly destroyed everything I had. If there's anything I've learned from this painful chapter, it's that infidelity doesn't begin with physical betrayal. It begins with small choices, small justifications, moments when you allow yourself to seek outside what you should be nurturing within. My story isn't one I'm proud of. But I share it because sometimes the dangers we face in marriage don't come in the form of fights or dramatic breakups. Sometimes, they come disguised as kindness, as friendship, as a simple favor. And if you're not careful, that favor can take a shocking turn you can never undo.